in our national interest.
Well, I'm joined now by our political editor, Nick Robinson, who's just come from the Downing Street garden. Has your jaw gone back up after, because it was jaw-dropping, wasn't it, to sit there and witness it?
I've been a bit delayed coming here, John, because I was lost for words. I am gobsmacked. Whatever hyperbole you want, I will use it. Not since I went to the first summit at Camp David between Tony Blair and George Bush have I seen a more unlikely love-in between two individuals. Quite extraordinary. Using first name terms, Nick Clegg never referred to Prime Minister. It was always to David. Once I noticed David Cameron referred to Nick Clegg as Deputy Prime Minister, laughing at each other's jokes, finishing each other's sentences, constantly telling us how much they agreed with each other. And you did just have to pinch yourself a bit and say you were knocking 7 bells out of each other the other day.
Well, exactly, because the last time I think we'd seen them together was in the last televised debate when David Cameron was desperately trying to bring Nick Clegg down a peg or two.
That's right. Whether it was on immigration or on Europe or on tax or on spending, need I go on, you were told not just that they got it a bit wrong, but they were a danger to the country. One thought of the other. Now, David Cameron, the Prime Minister, made a joke of that and said, you know, you're all going to find quotes about this, even that lovely quote that one of my colleagues brought up from Channel 5, that once he'd been asked what his favourite joke was, he said Nick Clegg.
Yeah, I tell you what,
keep happening.
Nick, I tell you what, let's just play that bit because it was hilarious.
Prime Minister, do you now regret when once asked what your favourite joke was, you replied Nick Clegg? And Deputy Prime Minister, what do you think of that?
We're all going to have. I'm afraid I did once.
Right.
We're all. I'm back. We're all going to have things that we said thrown back at us.
And Nick, just in terms of content at that news conference, it was content light, wasn't it? I mean, the detail wasn't there. But in this joint policy document, a bit more, particularly kind of interesting words on the euro.
Yeah, I mean, the detail is in this document. And what's interesting, John, is this document is a party document drawn up in those negotiations we followed for day after day. What I'm told behind the scenes is that senior civil servants are now working this up into a government document, a government declaration of policy that will, in fact, be a guide, really, for civil servants in the outside world of how the coalition government now operates. And on the euro, as you say, it is clear that David Cameron, the Prime Minister, has got what he wants on that, which is Britain will not go into the euro for 5 years, and that if there is any change to the European constitution, any change of that sort would have to be put to a referendum of the British people. Now, it raises intriguing possibilities. There are new treaties, as you know, you've operated in Europe as a reporter, there are new treaties each time a new country joins the EU. Now, do they regard that as a change to the sovereignty of Britain? Does that have to be put to a referendum, which might be lost, which might therefore stop the expansion of the EU? The detail will be very, very interesting when we get to it.
And what we've seen today is that they had the wind in their sails. There is goodwill probably around the place that they should succeed. But politicians are tested by the unexpected, the unpredictable. And presumably that is when we could see something different. And there we see the flowers arriving at the door in blue. You would expect some yellow flowers as well to be delivered on a day like this, given the harmony of those two political colours. And there the florists are delivering the flowers.
But I thought they might both come out together in order to accept the bouquets. I mean, there's a serious question about quite how this will operate, John, which is, I think, really going to keep doing this jointery. In the past, Deputy Prime Ministers have had two sorts of roles. They've either had another job in the way that John Prescott did, and it was a kind of honorary title, or they've been a progress chaser. They've been someone like Michael Heseltine or Willie Whitelaw who could call in senior colleagues and say, for goodness sake, I'm going to knock heads together. Let's get this sorted out. Nick Clegg can't perform that role, you wouldn't have thought, with senior Conservatives, because they might say, well, who are you? We're not going to listen to you. Why should we listen to you? You're not of our party. You weren't elected by us. So he's going to have an awful lot of time on his hands without a department. How will he use it?
Well, that was what struck me. Yes, he's in charge of political reform process, and that's not to underestimate the scale of that. But if you think of kind of the predecessors who held that post, they have wanted real jobs that have attached to it. He doesn't have a department. I don't know what cabinet committees he's chairing. Maybe that is something we'll still learn details about as the day goes on. Yeah,
but what we are told is he'll be just down the corridor. They joke that the fire doors that separate them will actually be open so that they can see each other. They won't have to pick up the phone. Fans of the West Wing, remember the role of the Vice President, constantly frustrated. Will it be that or a real job?
Fascinating. Nick, well, these are the things that we will mull on over the days and weeks ahead. Also, we'll be mulling on what the fate of the Labour Party is. The Labour Party, the Parliamentary Labour Party, is meeting. Carol Walker is outside the St Stephen's entrance.